Hello, and welcome to the Delusional Boyfriend Book Club. My name is Courtney, and I'll be your host. And today we're talking about July's BL Manhwa of the month, Shutline. This is by the author and creator Kyou, Kyou. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It has 100 stories. It's not complete, so the new episodes, or it has 100 chapters, and the new chapters come out every 10th, 20th, and 30th. You can find this story on Legend, and I have been waiting for over a year to start this story. I really wanted to do it for book club, so I've been holding out, and everybody around me has been doing updates on the chapters, and I had so much FOMO, and now I'm really excited to be in on the drama. So we've got our tropes going on here, which are dark romance. We have like gangster, life of crime, mafia going on. We've also got miscommunication. It's a little bit of, I would say, like a yellow flag situation going on. We've got a spy situation, spy manipulation, deceit happening. And then we've also got a revenge plot and a buff bottom. So those are kind of all of our tropes, if you will. And then our kind of spoiler free summary for this section is going to be, we're set in NYC. We have a scam artist who is a mechanic, and he scams the wrong guy. And after he scams the wrong guy, he's sucked into a life of crime much worse than the scamming he was doing previously. And he has to find out how he fits into that new picture, into that life of crime, while staying true to his morals and also getting revenge for things that have happened in his life. So it's a very complex story, and I can't give much else away without totally spoiling it. So if you haven't read it yet, you should absolutely go read it. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or Amazon Music or Apple Podcasts, subscribe there. And there might even be a button for auto downloads so that you never miss a new episode. And if you're on YouTube watching, please rate, review, and subscribe here as well. I got some new stuff for the podcast studio, which I'm really excited about, like this new mic. So if you've been here since day one, if you're a day one listener and you remember all of my audio changes throughout the last almost 30 episodes, I just want to say thanks for sticking with me. I'm an amateur at this. I really wanted to grow and develop a new skill, and that's come with some growing pains and some trial and error. And I just want to say thank you so much for not giving up on me. With all of that being said, let's dive into Shutline. Our main character is going to be named Moon Shingun, and he is so beautiful. So he is the bottom, and I will say that this story is told through multiple perspectives. So we don't just get Shin's perspective, we also get the top's perspective, whose name is Jake. And on top of that, we get a couple other characters' perspectives as well. So the narration through this is quite dynamic, which I personally really liked. That dynamic. I like getting each character's interpersonal thoughts and opinions in certain scenes and certain situations. So I thought that was really fun. But our main character's name is Shin. He goes by Shin, and he is a streetwise scam artist who basically was raised in an orphanage all of his life. And once he got out on his own in adulthood, he began working on cars and realized that if he fixed people's cars about 80% and didn't fix that last 20%, they would have to come back for him and he would get to fix their car again. So he's ensuring his own income by this scamming. So he is kind of fixing their cars, but he's making sure that they come back a second time. And our story begins when he pulls this move on Jake. This guy, Jake, shows up and asks to get his car fixed. He looks really well off. He's dressed really well. He clearly has like a mobster vibe going on, like he has a lot of money, but the car he wants fixed is a dump. And so Shin is a little bit confused, like, okay, I'll fix your car. It looks like you have the money, so I'll make sure that whatever I fix, I don't fix all the way, so you have to come back again. So he does that, and he scams this guy. And this guy does come back to him, and he's like, I know what you did to my car. I know that you sabotaged me so that I would have to come back for more. And at that point, Jake and Shin have this sexual tension that's like just not deniable. So Jake gets Shin to blow him as some kind of recourse for being scammed in the first place. And then he also gives him a bunch of money and basically says, like, okay, you're going to be my mechanic from now on. You're entering into a contractual obligation with me, and I'm going to continue to use your services. But along with that seems to be these strings attached to that. He's obligated to fulfill other needs of Jake's as well. So that's where our story begins. And I just want to right off the bat talk about the art. So with this art style, I had been really hesitant. Jake's character design is this very tall, like 6'7" man who is almost translucent white, like a vampire, with a bleached buzz cut, like Slim Shady. And he's got those yaoi proportions where his hands are quite big, but his like head is kind of small. Anyways, it can be a bit off-putting. So if you haven't read this and you're listening to the spoiler part anyways, I just want to say the art grows on you. Like, it grows on you so much. I used to be like, how could anyone like Jake? He's not cute. He's just not cute. Until I started reading, and then I was like, oh, not only is he cute, but I'm obsessed with him. Like, there's something about that blonde Slim Shady buzz cut. I don't even like blonde men, but Jake is different. He's so hot. So then we've also got Shin, our bottom, who is very buff. Like, in any other story, Shin would probably be a top. But we do see right off the bat that Shin knows he's gay, he's out gay, and he's had other gay relationships. And it seems like he was maybe the bottom in those as well. But we do kind of get teased throughout the series that Jake and Shin could switch. They could have like a verse moment where Jake bottoms and Shin tops. And I will hold my breath for that moment, even if it means I suffocate, because it would be so good to see Shin behind Jake. It wouldn't look totally right because Jake is so big, but I am holding out for that moment. And it's because Shin as a bottom is so different than most BL characters that we see in this like stereotypical position. Usually we see a very feminine character, which I love. I like femboys more than the next girl. Absolutely, I do. But there's something about having a character who's extremely masculine and extremely confident in his masculinity, who doesn't think that he loses anything from being a bottom. So still muscular, still has a really manly job, covered in grease, and none of that changes because he bottoms. He's not less manly because he bottoms. In fact, I would say he's even more manly because he's able to take Jake's giant horse dong. So like, I would say that takes a very tough person. And as a female, like, we are always the bottom in our situations unless you have a man who's willing to let you peg him. We're always the bottom in our situations. And I think it's very funny that people use like the term pussy to denote a weak person, because historically our pussies have taken a beating that no man could take unless you're Shin. Unless you're Shingun, and then you definitely have taken this kind of beating. So I really like the art style. I love that we have two massive, muscular, gorgeous men. I really like that. And I would say if you're hesitant to read the story because of the art style, just trust me, it will grow on you. It will be a favorite of yours, like within 10 chapters. By 20 chapters, this is going to be one of your favorite couples. So don't miss out on the story just because of the art style. So after Jake comes back and gets blown by Shin, and they make this kind of contractual deal, we see Shin getting a job, not just like as a normal street mechanic, but at a real mechanic shop. And at that mechanic shop, there's several other characters, like his boss, whose name is Caesar, and a guy named Liam. And those characters become his friends. And he is more legit because he's working at this actual shop. So as he's working there, they get a hookup with a guy who's kind of like has some political prestige, and he owns a casino. And they're like, okay, if we can make a connection with him, then we can get a ton of wealthy business, and we can ensure that we'll be in good standing as far as income coming into the shop goes for a while. So they send Shin to the casino to kind of schmooze and booze with this guy. And this guy's name is Ross. And when Shin gets there, it's very clear that Ross is interested in him, and also that Ross is dealing in a lot of like wealthy drugs and pastimes. He's like putting on these parties for people who are just doing a ton of drugs and kind of just strung out on the couch in the penthouse. And Shin has a visceral reaction to that. And that's when we start to learn that Shin's past is as an orphan who was adopted into a family. And in that family, he had a little brother he was really fond of, but that family was broken up by drugs. So there was some trauma in his childhood. I think his adopted father was a drug addict, and basically the whole adopted family fell apart, including his little brother, and they were forced onto the street, and they had to sell drugs and resort to certain criminal lifestyles as children in order to survive. So when Shin is confronted with this as an adult, he's really put off. He's just like, Ross, I don't want any part of your drugs. I don't want any part of this party. If you want to use our shop as business, that's fine, but I'm not here to do drugs with you, and I'm not going to hook up with you. And kind of in the middle of this, Jake interrupts. We see a knock on the door, and it's Jake fully decked out in police gear. And he's like, we're here for Shin Moon Gun or Moon Shingun. And he's like, oh, do you know each other? And Shin feigns ignorance. And he's like, no, I don't know him. I don't know why this cop is here for me. And so Jake takes him away. And this is after, actually, this is kind of important. Jake was watching on surveillance cameras as Shin goes into this guy's hotel room in the casino. And he like watches him on the surveillance as this guy, Ross, gives Shin a hickey on his neck. So Shin gets this hickey, Jake comes, interrupts, pulls Shin away, and Ross is all mad, like, oh, I was going to hook up with that guy. Why did this cop come and take him away from me? What the hell's going on? So Shin goes back with Jake, and he's like, so what are you? I thought for sure you were a gangster when I fixed your car and you came back with a gun and I blew you. It was very obvious that you were a gangster to me then, but now you're here in a cop uniform. What's going on? And Jake doesn't really elaborate. He kind of insinuates that he's just he's like posing as a cop in order to get away with some more criminal activity, but he doesn't really spell out what he's doing or who he is or what his mission is, what his goal is. So Shin just continues to assume that he's a gang member who is posing as a cop in order to like be a double agent. He's just really a sneaky guy. So Shin's kind of confused. Is Jake part of the Merciful gang that he thought he was a part of, or is he part of NYPD? Or is he a double agent? And if he is a double agent, which side is he truly on? So after this, we have Shin's little brother coming back into the story, and we do get a really good hookup with Jake and Shin right there when he's in the police uniform. They go back, they hook up. It's very steamy. He's like, leave the cop uniform on, which honestly I totally fucking get. And I will say the spicy scenes in this are really spicy. They're uncensored, first of all, and everything's colored really gorgeously, except for Jake's dick is like white. It's like fluorescent. It's glowing. But during these spicy scenes, we see a couple different things that I really love about these characters, which is that they each have kind of their like kinks, and Shin definitely likes it. He likes things that hurt. He likes things that are dirty. And he likes danger. And then Jake really likes armpits, and he's like super into Shin's stank, his funk, his smell. Like he is leaving hickeys all over this guy's armpits. And then also when Shin chews on Jake's ear, like when he kisses his ear or licks his ear, Jake gets off every time. So he's got this like ear thing going on as well, which I can really relate to. I feel like ears are this androgynous zone that several people in my history have, like, if you want them to get where they're going, kiss on their ears, suck on their ears. Like, I don't like it. I hate the sound of breathing on my ears. I really hate it. But I do get it because I've had partners who are like that. And the armpit thing, I just want to say, like, I've never tried it, but I would love to try it. And I just think the whole idea of pheromones and like somebody's smell being particular to you and you finding that smell really erotic, I think that's all very hot. So I really like that in the spicy scenes. It was very, very fun. So then we have Shin getting kind of like roped in with this gang affiliation from this point. And there are some guys who don't like Jake, and they see Jake and Shin hooking up together, and they take it upon themselves to like kidnap Shin. And a couple episodes later, we have Shin kidnapped by these guys, about to be raped by these guys, and Jake swoops in and kills them, and he literally like pops a cap in this guy's ass in front of Shin, and Shin is like, oh my god, you were a murderer. He's yelling out, he's like, don't kill him, don't kill him, and Jake kills him in front of him, and in a gruesome way too. Like shoving a gun up somebody's ass is crazy work. So from that moment on, Jake is like, listen, here's a gun. I need you to have a gun, Shin. I want you to protect yourself. Make sure you shoot a guy before they get that far with you. Don't sleep with anybody else. And then the audience starts to wonder, what's going on here? Why does Jake care so much about this random mechanic? What is it about this mechanic that's making him give him guns and let him in on his secrets? And I still, after finishing 100 chapters, like I still don't fully know what it was about Shin that made Jake trust him. In those first episodes, we have Shin very much like showing that he's not afraid of Jake. And I wonder if that's what it is. Is it just that this is the first person in Jake's life who hasn't been afraid of him or intimidated by him? And that ballsiness is what Jake is attracted to? Or is it the fact that when confronted by all this gang activity, Shin is completely unfazed? Like his life has already been hard enough that none of this really rattles him. So it's very interesting. And we do get like these really good spicy scenes, but all of it begs a lot of questions for me. Like, what is the actual plot going on here? And we find out a little bit more of that when Shin's little brother comes back into the story. So we find out that Shin was adopted as a child, and he has a little brother from this foster family or this adopted family that he was part of. And his name is Gren. And Gren comes back to talk to Shin and say basically like, you promised me when we were little, Shin, that you would never leave me. And you did, but I'm here and I'm back and I want to be your brother again. And I missed you. And I think we need to be back together again. And Shin is like, what have you been up to all of this time, Gren? It seems like you're kind of maybe involved in some weird shit. And Gren is like, yeah, we used to be involved with some light drug dealing when we were kids, and I just followed that path, and I've found myself to be in league with some gangsters, and I definitely sell some drugs now, and that's my life. And Shin is like, I really don't want that for you. I think you need to get out of this. And later on, we see that Gren is with those gang members and he gets in a car accident, and Jake pops out. He sees all of the gang members in the car accident are still alive. And Jake looks at Gren, and he has done all of this background intel on Shin. He's stalking Shin in a way. He has this like file on Shin where he knows all of everything about his life, including his adopted family, his work history, everything. And that's why I'm wondering, like, why did Jake go through all that effort to know all of that about a mechanic? Or did he know all of that even before he took the car to Shin the first time? That's my big question with this series. So when he sees Gren in this car accident, he basically says, I'm going to let you live because of your brother. Get the fuck out of town before you cause people more trouble. This is your last chance for mercy. And Jake leaves, and then Gren turns the gun on all of those other guys he was with doing that drug deal, and he kills all of the survivors, which is crazy. And it definitely shows you that Gren, like Shin, has moved on in the world, even though he's scamming people as a mechanic. He's never killed anybody. He has moral principles. He has kept this like goodness about him alive. And his little brother Gren, who he was separated from, did not keep that. And in fact, it feels like he's been corrupted in this life of crime. He no longer has any morals or principles. He just took all these guys out. And the only thing he seems to care about is getting back to Shin. So he has this kind of obsession with getting his older brother back, but that's not going to get his soul back. That's not going to undo all of the misdeeds that he's just done. So he runs away and calls Shin and is like, "Hey, basically, I'm alive, and I have to tell you, like, if you were, I think I saw you with that guy Jay. They're all calling him Jay. Um, and he's like, I think I saw you with him, and I just want to say, like, don't trust him. They're like, just don't trust him." So basically, Shin finds out that Jake helped Gren. Gren is in rehab. Shin confronts Jake and is like, I don't know who you are, but at this point, you seem like you could be a merciful. You seem like you could be NYPD. I don't know why you saved my brother. I don't know why you've taken an interest in me, but you haven't been honest with me once. So get the fuck out of my sight. And at some point, I forget what chronologically when it happens, but Shin is taken by some like of the merciful gang. So Shin starts to get really suspicious of Jake. Are you a merciful? Are you a NYPD? What's going on? But at this point, midway through the story, we've seen Jake saving Gren. We've seen Jake looking like a merciful. We've seen Jake kind of showing up in the nick of time to save Shin. So we just don't know what's going on. And Shin is done with the deceit. He's like, I have no idea who you are or what you want with me, but you're obviously not going to be honest. And so I'm done with this. Just fuck this all. I'm moving on. Don't bother me. And he and Jake go separate ways. So at the same time, he's still working at this mechanic shop and he is trying to get some more business back because when he blew off and rejected that guy Ross, who is clearly the fucking villain of the story, when he blew him off and rejected him, the shop lost a ton of business. So now Shin is going through like junkyards, trying to find missing parts for cars so that he can put new cars together, sell them for a good profit, and make the shop money. Little does he know the shop that he's working for is run also by somebody who is a double agent. So it's kind of funny to watch. Once you've read the whole story, it's funny to watch these scenes where Shin is trying so hard to save this mechanic shop. And then you find out later on, like, it was all kind of a front anyways. So he goes to a junkyard to get these parts for a car. And he knows that this junkyard is known for being like a drug dealing territory. And also that like gangs will leave stuff in cars in this junkyard in order to do pickups later on, like guns and drugs, etc. So even knowing this, he goes by himself to the junkyard and he sees all of these cars with their engines in it. And he's like, this is paradise. Literally, I could go around and get parts from all of these cars and have what I need to fix up this car at the shop, turn a huge profit. This is great. And as he's checking out this sedan in the junkyard, there he runs into who? But Ross, the villain of the story, doing this giant drug deal in the middle of the junkyard. So he's hiding behind a car. And we've seen just previously that Jake, from Jake's perspective, because it's switching between Shin's perspective and Jake's perspective all the way through the story. And we had seen in Jake's perspective that he had changed into an outfit that includes fake tattoos on his neck and earrings. And then he's wearing a ski mask with like a skull face on it. And so Shin is hiding behind this car while he sees this drug deal going down. And he accidentally knocks over a tire and creates this commotion. And when that commotion is created, Ross comes around, finds Shin, and then they kind of start beating Shin up. The rest of this gang is like, we should just kill him. We saw him with that guy, Jay. We think he's with this guy, Jay. And then you see Jake, who is in the ski mask, just trying to stay quiet while the guy he likes is getting beaten to a pulp. And finally, at the last minute before shit really hits the fan, Jake pulls his gun out, shoots everybody there, and runs away with Shin. And the only person who's left living is Ross, the evil villain. Okay. So after this, that's when we get Shin really being like, who the fuck are you? I've seen you now a part of like several different gangs and NYPD. I have no idea what you're doing, but I don't trust you. And Jake says, don't trust anybody. Basically kicks him out of the car and says, you're going to stay here in this motel outside of New York City. You're going to be wanted. I'm going to be wanted because I just blew the cover for a whole mission I was on. And now everybody in that gang is going to be suspicious of me. And the people in my own operation are going to be suspicious of me because they're going to wonder why the hell I just blew an operation. And it was because you happened to be at the junkyard and I sacrificed everything to keep you safe. So stay here in this town on the outskirts of New York City and stay in this motel. Do not move if you know what's good for you. So Shin gets a job at a car wash where he does some light mechanic work as well. And he has this like loud, noisy upstairs neighbor that he gets annoyed of at the motel. And then there's a neighbor to his side who he gets annoyed of as well. But for the most part, it seems like this could be a good new spot for him, except for the fact that his brother keeps calling him from New York City from rehab. And his brother is like, hey, I'm clean. I'm sober. I really want to see you. And Shin is like, people are looking for you. You can't just, like, we can't just meet out in the open. And his brother begs him. Gren is like, please come visit me one time and then I'll leave you alone. So Shin agrees. They go to a diner and he sits down with his brother. And his brother's like, let's run away. You and I together can face the world. Let's just get out of the city together. Please don't leave me again. And who walks into the diner as this is happening but Ross, the mega villain? He points a gun at Shin and is like, we're all leaving. So the three of them go back to a warehouse where they're on their knees with their wrists tied behind their back. And Ross has them both at gunpoint. And he's going crazy. We know that Ross is using drugs, just like he's using drugs at these parties that he's throwing. He's also under the influence of them. So he's really paranoid. And he also is trying to piece together how Shin knows Jake, or Jay is what everyone else calls him. How does he know him? Has he been backstabbed? He also has this obsession with Shin, which I'm not sure this story would even move forward if Ross didn't have this crazy obsession with Shin, but he does. So Ross is obsessed with Shin. He's kind of like torturing Gren at the same time. He shoots him in the leg, and then he goes to like shoot Shin or do something, and Gren kind of jumps in the way and he shoots Gren twice. And so Gren is like about to die when Shin breaks loose of his zip ties that are on his wrists. He had like a rock and he was cutting the zip ties with the rock. So he breaks loose. Gren tackles the other guy. Shin tackles Ross, and they get the guns. They shoot Ross in the arm, and the two of those guys leave. Now we have just Gren dying on the ground from gunshot wounds and Shin holding his little brother while he's dying, and he has nobody to call, but he hasn't been talking to Jake, so he doesn't know if he can call the police or what will happen. So he calls Jake, and Jake shows up on the scene, and he's like, your brother is going to die no matter what we do. We could take him to a hospital, but he will die. We can call the police, but they won't be here for a while, and they will blame you for the murder. So I think we should load him up in the car, light this warehouse on fire to get rid of the evidence, and then we will do what we can for your brother. And they do that, and his brother immediately dies, and they immediately bury him. It doesn't show you how long that time gap is, but it feels like maybe they cut some corners and got the brother buried immediately instead of having any kind of like funeral or autopsy or anything like that done. They probably didn't even register the death with like the city. So the next chapter, we just see them at the gravestone, and we kind of move on to Gren being dead. And I was devastated. I will say that I really felt for Gren, and I felt really conflicted about Shin choosing Jake over Gren. But there's something to be said about when someone's life has already taken a wrong turn and there's not really any going back. And this story did remind me a lot of Banana Fish. It reminded me a lot of Banana Fish in that way, in that Ash dies at the end of Banana Fish. Sorry, spoilers, but he dies at the end of Banana Fish, and the author says that somebody who's killed so many people can't just like go on to live a happy life. They have to have some kind of karmic retribution. And I do think that Gren got his karmic retribution for shooting all those guys earlier in the story, and we get the sense that that's maybe not the first time he's done that. So I didn't expect him to live, but I was also very sad when he died. So after Gren dies, Jake and Shin hook up again. And then Shin basically says, like, just because I had sex with you doesn't mean I trust you. And Jake is like, I want you to trust me. You shouldn't trust anybody, but I want you to know my intentions and what I'm doing and why I'm here. And Jake actually slips to one of Shin's friends a whole file on himself and outs himself for who he really is. And in that file, Shin can see that Jake is a mercenary who is part of like an elite CIA covert operation where like nobody really knows if this mercenary team even exists. So it's not even like SEAL Team 6. It's like secret SEAL Team 6. And basically Shin gets all of that information on him and realizes that he was never part of the Mercifuls. He was always part of this political government operation that's trying to bring down these gang rings in New York City. So once that's revealed, there's a bit more trust between Shin and Jake. And it's really funny because Shin is still living at that motel, and he realizes that Jake was the noisy neighbor above him, and he had been keeping an eye on him the whole time. And we, as the reader, got to see several moments where Jake was surveilling Shin, even though he's like in the motel room right above him. He has a bug inside his apartment, and he's listening to him when he jerks off, and he goes into his room when Shin is not there, and he smells Shin's sheets and like is like, oh, it smells like grease. But then he's just kind of like nesting in it like an omega, which I really love that about Jake. He is kind of a yearner in a way. Like he's obsessed with Shin more than Shin is obsessed with him, which I really like. I like somebody who's like kind of chasing the other character. And Jake is definitely, once he set his eyes on Shin, he never took his eyes off the ball. And all of his other goals seemed to change around what Shin was doing. And that relationship redirected the whole course of his life, it seems, from being this covert operation mercenary to wanting to have a partner in life and wanting to protect one certain person, not an operation. So I found all of that really interesting. I thought it was all really fun, like entertaining. The plot in this is confusing as fuck. There's so many times in this story where I had to ask myself, like, where, first of all, where is this going? Second of all, what's everyone's motivation for what they're doing already? Because it's secret to us, and we get each one of their perspectives for such a short period of time that we're not getting their true motivations. So there's also another character in the story called Rolf, which is the boss of Jake, and basically they fired Jake from this operation after the junkyard mishap. And then Jake dug up dirt on them, making it so that they had to team up with him again because now they're both blacklisted. And so we even get that character's point of view, and we get Gren's point of view. So we're getting multiple people's point of view, but we're not getting the whole story, the whole picture. Like there's still so many questions about everybody. So that's been a very interesting thing to navigate in this 100 chapters. And I wonder how long the story is going to be, because in my mind, the plot is still so confusing that I'm like, there has to be at least another 50 to 70 chapters left before everything resolves and we get like our happily ever after at the end, if we're going to get a happily ever after. But just for the plot to resolve, I think we need another 50 chapters. And I will say that these chapters read really quickly. Like you can rip through this story because there's a lot going on. So after we learn that Jake is a mercenary, we get Shin basically taking on this revenge plot and saying, I need to avenge my brother's death. He did not deserve to die like that. Ross shooting him in a warehouse was absolutely despicable. I want to kill Ross. And so Jake is like, are you sure you want to do this? Because I'm on the outs with my original mercenary gang. I'm on the outs with the Mercifuls. Basically, we're going to be in this on our own. You, me, and maybe my old boss, Rolf, if I can manipulate them into this situation. And Shin is like, bet. I'm down. I'm ready to do this. I want to avenge my brother's death. So the three of them like move forward. And at episode 100, we have those three going against all the other villains in this story. And I'm really excited to see what happens. So Shin asked Jake, will you teach me like how to be a part of this world of crime like you are? I want to get the revenge. And Jake says, absolutely, but you're going to need to learn how to shoot. So he takes him to a shooting range. And then we have this like adorable scene in the shooting range where Jake is teaching Shin how to shoot, and there's also an old couple next to them. The old couple wants a picture of themselves, so Shin takes a picture of them. And then the old couple's like, let's get a picture of you two as well. And then Jake and Shin get a picture with their target practice of their shooting at the shooting range. And it was all just really cute, but it also tells you that like whatever we're amping up for is going to be extremely dangerous, and Shin needs to be a lot more practiced and skillful with a gun than he was already. Obviously, he's going to like need his mechanic skills as well, and Jake has him outfit a car, bulletproof glass, and all of the fixings so that they have a vehicle to pull off whatever operation they're going to pull off. But he also needs him to be able to shoot somebody dead if he needs to, because in the past, Shin has shot one person during the skerfuffle at the junkyard, but it wasn't in his vitals, and he's kind of scared to take someone's life. He's scared that he won't feel anything and that he'll just be a cold-blooded murderer after that. So Jake is trying to slowly transition him into a position where he's not afraid to kill somebody if he needs to in order to survive. So that's where we end off. And I just want to say, like, I'm such a fan of this story. It is so good. And there's so many episodes that I want to talk about. And this podcast could go on and on about this because there's so many things I want to talk about. But one thing I want to mention is like, there's a Costco scene in this story where they're each picking out like moisturizer and slippers. And for two criminals and this kind of like edgy love story, I thought those slice of life moments were really sweet. There's a moment where they're sitting at a bar, which I really liked. So yeah, there's so much about this story that I find compelling, and I think that the artist and the creator did something very unique. I've not seen any other plot like this plot. There's so much like detail about the car and the mechanics, which I think offers a lot of nuance and creativity to this story. We have gangsters all the time, but there is like an emphasis on the mechanics in this story, and it makes me care about cars. And I think it's really cool when an author can get you to care about something you used to not care about at all and make it a natural part of the story so it doesn't feel belabored, but it feels like, I don't know, fascinating. Like suddenly I do kind of give a shit about mechanics and going to a junkyard and scrapping. Like all of that is really interesting. And then I also think that the character design was super ballsy, because it is just known in the Fujoshi BL community that Jake has bad haircut and that a ton of people hate this art style. But the artist went with it and was kind of just like balls to the wall, making this character look the way they wanted him to look. He's got like long blonde sideburns. None of it should work. And at first glance, it didn't work for me. But it does grow on you so much. And it makes these characters, Shin and Jake, stand out from the rest of BL characters entirely. And I would say the other couple that does this really well is going to be Caesar and Leewon, because Caesar's blonde and Taeju and Uyun, like again, Taeju is blonde, and I usually hate these blonde characters, but when an author really takes a risk on the character design and makes them completely different from other characters, now suddenly you'll never confuse that character with other people. They will stand out for you like a sore thumb. And I really like that. And I commend this author and this artist for doing something that isn't everyone's cup of tea, but is a lot of people's cup of coffee at the end of the day. And for me, I found myself absolutely buying in hook, line, and sinker to the art style. I would say that this story is one that I was really feeling FOMO for not reading chapter by chapter as it was coming out. Everyone else was reacting to each chapter, and I wanted to be in on that. But you know, if you're Fujoshi, you can't just buy every completed manhwa that everyone's talking about. You'd go broke. And you can't just spend all day reading BL because you would lose your job. Like, I need to stay employed. So I have to space out these stories for myself somehow. And I'm really glad for book club, because it feels like we get to space these out naturally by having them on the calendar. And I love that. And so I'm so happy to be here current with the story. And now every 10th, 20th, and 30th, I get a new episode and I can post on TikTok and make socials about Shutline. And I'm in on the fandom now. So I just want to say, like, I'm so happy to be here in the fandom. I'm absolutely a Shutline girly now. I am so happy the rest of you encouraged me to do this story, and I hope I did the summary justice. And now for my favorite part, which is the delusional boyfriend section. My delusional boyfriend from this story should be no surprise to anybody. It's Jake. Shin is perfect. Shin's a perfect person, but he's covered in grease. He's like stanky, dirty street urchin. And I love that for him. And I love that for Jake. But Jake is like a kinky, clean, ambitious, dangerous, scary, complex, criminal, vigilante. Everything about Jake is just like, it's so good. When he has the neck tattoos, when he's undercover as a cop, you can't beat that. You literally can't beat that. So it's very obvious for me who my delusional boyfriend from this story is. How does he compare to my other delusional boyfriends? I would say he's in like the top 10, but in order for him to be like number one, I need him to like show some emotion, and he doesn't show any emotion. Even when he's scared for Shin's life, it's all internalized. Like it's nothing shows on his face. And I need a moment where Jake like cries and says, I never loved anybody before. My own parents didn't love me, but I choose you as my family. I love you. I would risk my life for you. And this is all stuff he's shown with his actions, but I want to hear him say it with his voice. Shin, you are the love of my life. I will do anything for you, Shin. I will throw away all of my career and my goals and my ambitions in this world to make you happy. And so when that happens, Jake will probably be my number one. But until then, not quite. Not quite. Not quite. When you look at like Our Sunny Days, it's just, when you look at Lord On and Bohm from Taming the Tiger, like those are people who have admitted that they love each other, not just admitted that they loved each other, but admitted that they would like die for the other person and that they will throw their whole life into disrepair in order to incorporate that love interest into their story. So I want to see Jake do that. When I see Jake do that, then maybe he'll be my number one delusional boyfriend. And then as far as would I date him IRL, like, are you kidding me? No way in fucking hell. No way in hell. My husband is the son of a Navy SEAL, and that's really rough. And when I first met him, I was 18 and he was 20. And he used to tell me, if I don't know what I'm doing by the time I'm 22, I'm going to join the Navy. And I would say I'll never date a man in uniform. And I'm so sorry to any of you listening out there who are in the service. I am a child of an Army member. I could never date somebody who is in the service. Ever. Never in a million years could I date somebody who is even like in the National Guard, because the idea that the person I love could be sent to fight, it gives me anxiety just thinking about it. I could not live like that. And now that my mother-in-law is a military spouse, my sister-in-law was a Navy diver, and she herself married a Navy SEAL. Like, I know so many people with firsthand experience about dating service members, and it's not for me. And let alone service members, we're talking about like a mercenary. So we're talking about somebody who is constantly MIA and doing a covert operation, can't tell you where they are, can't tell you if they're safe, could be dead, could be alive, who knows. And my anxiety just could never deal with that. On top of that, Jake is also embroiled with all these gangs and politics in a way that is so dangerous. Everyone around him is dropping like flies. So would I date someone like that IRL? No way in fucking hell. My anxiety would have me in the grave before they were in the grave. Like, I just can't be worried about the person I love getting murdered in a like drug deal bust or whatever the hell Jake is up to. Like, I still don't know what Jake is up to. Also, I'm Snoopy, and I am like never going to be okay with a guy who's constantly lying to me and giving me half truths, which Shin is trying to get more out of Jake. But at the same time, he's still being lied to all the time, and he has to kind of just like accept that he will never know what the truth about Jake is. And Jake is like, yeah, I've given you a file on me and you can trust that that's true or not. There's nothing else I can do to convince you that who I tell you I am is who I am, because technically I don't exist. My whole history has been erased, and I am just like a weapon to my organization now. So I could never live like that. So no, I definitely think that Jake is like a beautiful delusional boyfriend for the realm of fiction, and I would not bring him into an IRL setting. And if he was in an IRL setting, he would be the last guy I dated. So that kind of wraps up my normal delusional boyfriend questions. So as far as this story goes, I would definitely like to do another episode on it once it finishes or once we get to the end of the next season. So look out for another Shutline episode. All of you Jake and Shin girlies, please let me know if you want more content on Shutline. I think as I go getting the updates on the 10th, the 20th, and the 30th, I'm going to be making like TikToks and Instagram reels about it so that I can just kind of stay in the fandom. But if you guys want another bonus episode as we get further along in the series or as we finish the series, let me know. I'll absolutely be open to doing that. I could talk about these boys all day long. With that being said, all I have left is to kind of plug for next month's book club. So July is rounding out here. We've already done our anime of the month, which was Dakaichi. We've done our manga of the month, which was Engage. And then we've done our manhwa of the month, which was this one, Shutline. Now we have the first book of the Saint View Rebels series by L. Thorpe for our romance novel, Reverse Harem of the month. So please join us for that. That episode will release on the 25th. And then next month for August, we're obviously going to do the second book in that series for the romance novel. But then for the BL anime, we're doing Classmates. And that has a different name in Japanese. It's like Doyu. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's called Classmates. So if you want to watch the BL anime, join us for that. For the BL manga, it's Lullaby of the Dawn, which I think I have right here. Hold on. Okay, this is the manga, one of the mangas I've been most excited for. I have really tried not to open this and read this. I've like flipped through the pages a couple times because I'm so excited about it. But Lullaby of the Dawn is going to be our BL manga of the month. I really hope that you guys join in for that because I know from watching all of the other BL creators that I love that this is peak story. So you don't want to miss. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss that episode. And then our manhwa of the month for next month is going to be Miscreants and Mayhem. And if you know anything about Miscreants and Mayhem, you know that it's going to be a very controversial, heavy, twisted story. I am really excited to cover it. It has a lot of like taboo themes in it, and I think it's going to be tumultuous, and I'm just really excited for you guys. This is going to be the same author as Taming the Tiger, so it's Brothers Without a Tomorrow, and they're known for their super beefy, muscular characters. Also, they're known for making you cry. So please join us for our manhwa next month, Miscreants and Mayhem, and then the second book of the St. View Rebels series. So August is going to be really fun. Also, my birthday is August 14th. I'm a Leo, and I hope that you guys will join me just for my birthday month so we can make it like the best month ever. I always feel like August is the best month of the year. So help me in making that the best month by tuning in and engaging with me when you guys can. If you're not following on TikTok and Instagram, I love when you guys comment on posts over there or give me recommendations for things I should read. So please go follow us on those socials. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And I cannot wait to keep going through these stories with you guys. I can't believe that the year is almost halfway over. And I'm really excited to get into some of the other titles that we're doing. And then I'm hoping for next year to get your guys' input on some titles that you want to see on the calendar. So please let me know what are we not covering on this year's book club podcast that you guys want to see next year. I have a couple different ideas for themes. One of the themes I'm thinking is fandom favorites. So big heavy hitter stories that I haven't read yet that I would love to review on the podcast, which are going to include like Pearl Boy and Painter of the Night. So that's one way I'm thinking of leaning is fandom favorites. The other way I'm thinking of leaning is stories that have a manga, an anime, and a live action adaptation. So that could also be a manhwa, an anime, and a live action adaptation, or a Chinese animation and danmei / manhwa and a live action, Chinese BL live action. So I have a couple different ideas. I also thought we could do a year of Yuri. So there's lots of things floating around. I would love to hear your guys' perspective of what theme you want to see for next year. And once we narrow down the theme, then we can vote on what stories go on the calendar. I really would love to do some Danmei, even if they're just bonus episodes, like maybe every other month. So tell me what Danmei you want to see. If you're a live action BL girly, tell me what live action BLs you want to see. And if you're a romance novel girly and you're listening along on all these other episodes, please tell me what romance novels you're wanting to read. Me and my bestie, Phoebe Princess, who does all the guest spots on those romance novel episodes, we have not decided yet what we want to do. We still kind of want to do reverse harem, but we could break into traditional male-female romances. Who knows? We could do all fantasy. Let me know what you think, because this year is going by so fast, and it's going to be 2026 before we know it, and a whole new book club year. I hope you guys are enjoying book club. I hope it's helping you. I know for me, it helps me get out of my depression, put on some makeup, show up in front of the camera, talk to you all. And I hope for you guys, it helps you have something to look forward to and something like on the agenda to wake up for in the morning. If you have any mental health problems like I do, I hope that this is a bright spot in your life that feels like a community and a safe space and a place you can enjoy the things you already enjoyed with people who are like-minded. And if it is, then I've done one thing right in my life. So thank you so much for being here. I hope it's worth it for all of you guys. It's absolutely worth it for me. Making these connections with you guys has been such a huge pleasure. It has been the like joy of my year. And after losing my grandma last year, I really needed something to be happy about and excited about. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast and making this possible. I can't overstate how happy and how meaningful this project has been to me. So thank you for being here. And until next time, remember, sometimes the delusion is the solution. Bye.